Welcome to Evolving Into Her. I'm Ashley Hope, and this is your weekly check-in to get out of your head, into your body, and back into alignment with the version of you who's already living the vision. So grab your favorite cup of tea, settle in, and let's get into the show. Hey girl, hey. Welcome back to Evolving Into Her. And first things first, before we get into today's episode, I just want to say thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, from the depths of my being, okay? The response to this podcast has been so beautiful and way beyond anything I ever expected. The DMs, the shares, the comments, the conversations y'all are having because of these episodes, I feel it and I appreciate it, and I am so grateful. Like, my love tank is full. Better yet, it overfloweth, okay? And last week's episode 4, the Midlife Awakening, has been the most downloaded and shared thus far. Like, it's really resonating with you guys. So if you haven't had a chance to check that one out yet, go listen when you get a moment. And if this podcast has been helping you feel seen or supported in your own process, I would love it if you left me a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Yes, 5 stars. Okay. Closed mouths don't get fed. Okay. I'm going to ask for what I want and what I deserve. But no, thank you for leaving me a heartfelt review. And you doing that just really helps more women find this space, especially the ones who might not even know that they're looking for it yet or that they need it yet. And one last thing before we dive in, I'm introducing a new segment of the show called Dear Ashley. And you guessed it, it is a Q&A style type segment, and it'll be a space on the podcast where I answer anonymous questions from you guys. And it could be anything you're navigating: healing, identity shifts, relationships, situationships, if that's your real friend or not, if you should leave that man alone, purpose, whatever you have a question about, send it to me and we will talk about it, okay? And the link to submit your question is in the show notes. And again, it's completely anonymous. I'm not collecting your name. I'm not collecting your email. All I ask is that you leave me enough detail so that I can give you a thoughtful response in return. Okay, so let's get into today's show. I have a beautiful cup of lemon ginger tea with honey, and I put one of those Hall's lozenges in there, and it is so good. I'm going to take a sip right now, and I'm not going to edit that out. So today I want to talk about the in-between season, or some of you might call it the meantime. And essentially, it's just a space where you've let go what no longer aligns, but the next chapter hasn't fully taken shape yet, right? And it could be such a tender place to be in because your old life doesn't fit anymore, but the new one is still unfolding. And that space, if we're not careful, it can start to feel like a waiting room. And think about a waiting room, girl. No one ever wants to be in a waiting room. It's cold in there. It's sterile. The air is dry and uncomfortable. The chairs are usually hard. The lighting is usually some ugly fluorescent lighting. You're surrounded by people who are anxious, checked out, frustrated. The TV is playing some random show you're not watching. They got old, outdated magazines in there. There's no real engagement, right? Just waiting. And that's how so many women treat this in-between season. They are disconnected. They're distracted. They become detached from their own joy. And it's almost like they're waiting to feel clear, waiting to feel validated, waiting for the next chapter to start before they allow themselves to fully live again. But I just want to encourage you. This season is not a waiting room, right? It's not just wasted time. It's not a placeholder. This season is sacred ground. It's the space where deep realignment happens, right? Where you're not being called to perform or push, but to return to yourself. and to hear what's been buried under the noise, to feel what you've been too busy to sit with, to realign with the truth of who you are and not just what you're trying to manifest next or call in next, right? And I had a season like that after I moved to Houston. And if you haven't yet, go back and listen to episode 3. And I spoke about how I dismantled my entire life. And I entered this season after all of the dismantling. I had just walked away from a lot. I walked away from a relationship that no longer felt right, a job that no longer felt aligned. I abandoned my fitness coaching business. I released some friendships. I left my hometown. I released the pace of life that had kept me in constant motion, that kept me on this hamster wheel, that kept me in hustle mode and grind mode. And I entered this stretch of time that was quiet. It was so quiet. It was still. And honestly, the best way for me to describe it in hindsight, it felt so unfamiliar. I wasn't striving. I wasn't chasing anything. I had cleared so much, and now I was just here. And I was also enjoying my life. I was doing things that I love. I was waking up slow. I was waking up without an alarm clock. I was cooking fresh meals, sitting in silence, moving with intention, and just letting my nervous system reset after years of being in survival mode. But I didn't treat that season like I was in a waiting room because I wasn't waiting, baby. I was healing. I was listening. I was paying attention to divine downloads. I was paying attention to the whispers of the Holy Spirit. I was sitting in stillness. I was finally giving myself the space to just be, right? For the first time in my life, I wasn't rushing. I wasn't forcing. I wasn't performing. Just being with myself fully and completely. And it was in that space where I did some of the most important work I've ever done. After I released that relationship, I still had to do the work around boundaries and worthiness and what I believed I deserved in partnership. I had to do the work around what alignment in partnership looked like. I had to look at how I was showing up emotionally and my attachment style and how much of myself I had compromised to try to hold on to something that wasn't aligned. I had released the job and left corporate America, but now I was working for myself, and that came with its own initiations. I had to build a relationship with consistency and visibility and trust. I had to show up even when it was uncomfortable because, baby, if I didn't work, I didn't get paid, okay? And the bills don't stop just because you quit your job, okay? And essentially, there was no hiding behind the salary anymore. And that brought up all kinds of stories about being enough, about being seen, about trusting my voice. And then when it came to my body, when I got to Houston, the first 2 months or so, I lost about 30 pounds. And I'm going to tell you a quick backstory. When I left my place in the DMV and I broke my lease after I decided to quit my job, I stayed with the parentals for a few months just to stack and save and gather my bearings before I moved to Houston. And baby, my bonus mom was cooking breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Okay. And if y'all don't know, my bonus mom is Asian. So baby, she cooked a lot of rice. She cooks very hearty meals. And I put on probably a good 30 to 40 pounds. But luckily, when I moved to Houston, not luckily, actually, it took a lot of hard work and sacrifice and isolation. But when I got to Houston, I just put my head down and really focused on my fitness journey. And I lost about 30 pounds. And while that was empowering in so many ways, it also brought up a lot of old stuff about my relationship to my appearance, to being perceived, to allowing myself to take up space without shrinking or apologizing for it. So back to this in the meantime season. I wasn't just sitting still, right? I was doing the deep, layered inner work. I was facing things I hadn't had the time or the capacity to face before, because before this time, I was spending 12 hours a day, 2 hours to get to work, 8 hours at work, 2 hours to get back home. 8 hours a day, 5 days a week was dedicated to work and getting there and back. And then I had a fitness coaching business on the side, which was very lucrative, but it took up a lot of time for me. And during the week, there are many days where I was up at 4 or 5 a.m. taking clients before work. And many times after work, where I was either running a boot camp or taking clients after the sun had gone down. I was exhausted. I didn't have time to sit in stillness. I didn't have time to do the deep self-reflection. I didn't have time to really sit and think about what was not in alignment for me. I was busy. I was doing all the things. And when I had the space to be still when I arrived in Houston, I was in this space where I wasn't striving anymore, but I was being intentional. And I read this book by Ayanla. It's called In the Meantime, and it really helped me put language to this season. And this book gave me a framework for what I was already feeling, that this season wasn't a timeout. It wasn't a waiting room, right? It was an invitation. And she describes the meantime as a space where you clean the emotional house. And I'm not talking about just tidying up and fluffing pillows. I'm talking about deep clean, like the kind of cleaning your mama used to wake you up for early on a Saturday morning. Y'all know what I'm talking about, right? R&B blasting through the house. You're still half asleep, but now you're on your knees, scrubbing baseboards, pulling stuff out of closets, wiping down the windows, like no corner left untouched. You're moving furniture, you're lighting incense, you're inhaling the toxic mix of Ajax, Pine Sol, and bleach. Okay, I don't know how we survived, but God, thank God we don't look like what we've been through. And thank God most of us still got all of our brain cells. Okay, but that type of clean is what she was referring to. And it's the same with your inner world. You get into the corners. You shine light into those dark spaces. You scrub the parts you've been ignoring. You throw out what you've been holding on to for way too long. You rearrange what no longer fits, and you create space. And not just for love, not just for money, not just for that new job, but for clarity, for alignment, for truth, for joy, for expansion. And there's a story she shares in there about a woman cleaning her physical house, but really she's cleaning up her internal world. And she's finally tending to what she used to overlook. And I felt that so deeply because that's exactly what was happening in my life around that time when I first, moved to Houston. I had cleared the clutter physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And now I had to sit with what was left, not avoid it. I couldn't bypass it. I couldn't dress it up and pretend. I had to face it. I had to hold it. I had to sit with it. I had to allow it to transform me. And that is what the meantime is for. Friend, it's not here for you to fill it with distractions, for you to rush through because it's so uncomfortable, or for you to strive through because you're not used to just being. The meantime is meant for you to live inside of, to heal inside of, to realign and return to yourself inside of, to be inside of, right? And this is where the quiet, where the stillness reveals what the noise kept buried so deeply. This is where you face the parts of yourself that you used to avoid. This is also where you build new habits. This is where you learn how to hold your own joy without waiting for permission. This is where you stop outsourcing your peace and you start practicing it. You start embodying it. It's in this space that you get to ask the deeper questions and not what do I need to do next or what's coming next or what are the next steps, but who am I becoming now that I'm no longer who I was? And questions like, what kind of life feels honest in my body, in my being, in my soul, and not just good on paper? So if you're in that space now where it feels like not much is happening, right? It's quiet, it's still, and it might be uncomfortable. But if you're in this space where you're no longer where you were, but not yet who you're becoming, friend, this is your reminder. You're not behind. You are being prepared. You're being refined. You're being invited into the most honest version of you. So don't treat this season like a waiting room. This is a sacred space and it deserves your full presence. And since you're here, like really here, I want to leave you with something to sit with as you move through this season and as you move through this week. And I want you to ask yourself, what are you learning to hold, heal, or release in this meantime season? And not because you're being punished in any way or being forced to sit down, but because you're being prepared for what's next. And I want you to sit with that. You can journal it out with pen and paper. You can ponder on this while you're on a walk outside, where I tend to get a lot of clarity. And just allow yourself to record a stream of consciousness. That it doesn't have to have any rhyme or reason. It doesn't really have to make sense. But just allow yourself to get it out. And even if you're not recording a voice note or writing a journal entry, just ask yourself the question and allow yourself to be guided. Allow the response to be shown to you in divine timing and divine order. Pay attention to signs and synchronicities, right? Pay attention to your dreams. Pay attention to random or not so random thoughts that come up, divine downloads. And once you allow that guidance to come through, also allow yourself to trust it. And then make sure that you take heed to it. And now let's transition into a moment for her. This is the part of the show where we soften, where we reconnect, and where we bring everything we just explored back into the body. And as you know, this work goes beyond insight. It goes beyond intellect. It's about integration and letting truth settle in your body, letting truth settle in your being, letting it live in your nervous system, letting it shape how you move through your day, letting it shape how you speak, how you choose, how you show up for yourself. So if you're in a place where it feels safe to do so, go ahead and slow down. And allow your shoulders to drop. And let your jaw relax. Soften your belly. And let your breath meet you right where you are. No need to force it. Just let it flow naturally. And I invite you to place one hand over your heart and the other hand over your womb or your belly. And let this be a moment to simply be. There's nothing to fix. There's nothing to figure out. There's nothing to strive for. You are safe. You are supported. You are protected. You are being divinely guided. And you're already her, even here in this very moment. And friend, take one more cleansing breath in through your nose, expand your belly, expand your diaphragm. And at the top of that breath, release it slowly through your mouth. And let this breath remind you, you are not in a waiting room. You do not need to put your life on pause. You do not need to put your life on hold. You are in sacred preparation. And repeat after me, either out loud or in your mind. I'm not waiting to live my life. I choose to be present with what's here now. I am whole, becoming, and aligned right now, even in the meantime. Thank you, friend. I'll see you next time. I'm Ashley Hope, and you've been listening to Evolving Into Her. Thank you so much for being here with me. Thank you for choosing her, for choosing yourself. And until next time, stay in devotion to your becoming.